France is a country that went through a long monarchical period before embracing a democratic ruling system. However, even though the kingdoms don't exist anymore, their massive chateaux still do. This icon, the Palace of Versailles, France, ultimate royal palace. These are well-preserved historic buildings, and a large amount of money is spent by the French government every year in the maintenance of these iconic buildings. These palaces not only showcase the luxurious lifestyle of French kings, but it also shows off the architectural trend at that time. France is the home of many chateaux, and in this video, we will be talking about the Palace of Versailles, France, the ultimate royal palace. Stick around until the end as we look inside. The Palace of Versailles is a very important landmark in France, located in the city of Versailles, which is in northern France, about 10 miles west-southwest of Paris. The palace was built, and initially, this piece of land served as a hunting lodge and private retreat for Louis VIII and his family. However, in the year 1624, the king decided to build a chateau on the site. Its walls are being preserved today, but the obvious signs of aging in the exterior of the chateau are quite visible, as it gets preserved, not renovated. Still, this chateau's beauty is in its aged exterior, which looks over its gorgeous marble court. During the reign of Louis XIV, it was decided to give the chateau an immense and extravagant transformation. The chateau now had exotic French and English gardens. As a matter of fact, the French gardens took over 40 years to complete, which shows how passionate Louis XIV was about transforming the Versailles Palace. Since then, in order to keep the garden looking as beautiful as it used to back then, the garden goes through replantation every 100 years. Louis not only added the beautiful gardens to the chateau, but the chateau was also built furthermore, as King Louis XIV wanted to show off his royal powers. The Versailles Palace, which was just a hunting lodge previously, became a very significant landmark of Louis XIV's reign. Here we will be letting you guess how many rooms this massive palace has. 100, 200, 500, 1,000? Not even 2,000. The palace had a total of 2,300 rooms in it. The palace was so huge that no one living in the palace could visit all the palace rooms during their lifetime. But why would King Louis XIV spend so much and construct such a palace which is so huge that he couldn't even explore it properly? Well, King Louis was obsessed with being the most powerful king out there. He wanted to make a statement with this absolutely massive palace. King Louis XIV was so obsessed with being powerful that he did not settle on being just the king. He also took the title of being the prime minister in the French monarchy. He went so far that he used to call himself the Sun King, which means that he is the earthly representative of God. This is the kind of stuff you used to hear in Greek mythology. Well, now that we have discussed a lot about the history of this palace, let's imagine, what if you get to live in this massive palace? Well, first of all, you won't be able to explore the whole palace. The king could never do it, even though he used to live there for much longer. Even if you open a branch of McDonald's in this palace, there are chances that you'll lose the calories that you gained from eating that quarter pounder while just walking to your bedroom. Well, jokes aside, this palace was much more than just the king's residence. He shifted his old castle here by integrating it, by expanding the hunting lodge. He chose a rather classical style of exterior design to signify his kingdom's dominance. We can observe an overabundance of the Baroque style in the interior side of things, with curvy lines, fancy decorations, vibrant and ornate designs, gold trim, and huge wall and ceiling paintings. In France, all the construction materials and furnishings were made. The estate was overall quite massive, bigger than the size of Paris today. Because this palace was absolutely massive, it is obvious that the king didn't live in this palace alone. As a matter of fact, the place used to house 3,000 to 4,000 people regularly, including the royal family, friends, guests, the king's mistresses, and even his enemies. The lifestyle of the king was so luxurious that his waking up was celebrated every day by the people in the palace. The ceremony was called the Ceremony of the Rising Sun. And as we told you before, King Louis used to consider himself as the sun, symbolizing him as a representative to God. King Louis also hosted beautiful parties, feasts, concerts, plays, and ballets, both indoors and in the beautiful gardens that took decades to complete. The successors, Louis XV and XVI, also made their modifications to the Versailles Palace. However, the rioting Parisians drew King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette away from Versailles, ending the Versailles Palace's status as the royal residence. It can now be visited by tourists. However, they are allowed to explore only 20 rooms out of the massive number of rooms this palace has. The rooms include the Hall of Mirrors, chapel, the King and Queen's bedchambers, rooms where the royals dined and entertained guests, various antechambers, and guard rooms. All of them are magnificently opulent and feature original furnishings. King Louis XV wanted a palace that will showcase his power and strength, and the palace clearly showcased that through its massiveness. The palace used to astonish its visitors 300 years back, and it still astonishes its visitors now. The Palace of Versailles is definitely an architectural masterpiece, and just by touring it, you can get an idea of how massive the French Empire was and how powerful King Louis XV was back then. The paintings showed the rich history, and the way the palace is still maintained is absolutely amazing. Architecture like that still looks quite amazing even after 300 years, where the architectural perception has completely transformed. Such architecture and the massiveness of the palace do show how rich King Louis was, how rich his empire was, and how luxurious his lifestyle was. The Palace of Versailles is definitely a very important landmark that shows how massive the French Empire was in its prime. That's all we have for today, folks. We hope you absolutely loved the video on the Palace of Versailles, France, the ultimate royal palace. And if you did, press the like button. And you know what? Let's push a like target. So the target of likes we are setting for this video will be 2,300, which is as many as the number of rooms in the Versailles Palace. Also, comment down below if you want to suggest to us some other topics for our future videos, and we will definitely look into your request. Also, hit the like and subscribe button. Till then, have a nice day. Sayonara.